Have you ever questioned if you even wanted to be here anymore? Today, we're getting real about those tough moments and how tapping into our feelings can lead to healing. Ethan Gibson joins us to share his powerful journey and tips that can help you today. Don't miss out and stick around for some funny moments at the end just for y'all.
One day in 2021, I attempted suicide. I got to that point just from having gone through so many depressive episodes. Because, see, at that time, I was so sure and I was convinced that what I was feeling, which wasn't anything but pain, was the feeling to follow. And in that moment, there's an interruption of a separate feeling of a gut feeling of, no, this is wrong. So I had to decide, well, which one am I going to follow? I was looking for anything that I could do to not feel as depressed as I was feeling. But you're right. When you validate it and come to terms with it, then you can move forward.
Okay, amazing souls. Welcome back to another episode of Connection Over Perfection, your space where you are seen, heard, and valued. I'm your host and therapeutic nutritionist, Amber McCrea. Today we have an amazing guest, Ethan Gibson. Ethan is not your typical author because he definitely prefers writing over reading. Despite this, he has written a book, The Nonchalant Perfectionism, A Man's Guide to Developing Emotional Resilience. But let me tell you, I've read it and it's really for anybody who's experienced tough times and is looking for tools to help them through it. He's 24 and full of life. He's faced many big challenges. He's proof that even when there's doubt and days that feel as though we really don't want to be here, that there is a path we can take to help us find our way out. He's also working on two more books while he enjoys his Red Bulls from a mini fridge in Idaho. But what I love most about Ethan and his book is his genuine approach to the ongoing struggle. And this is so real for all of us. It's not about making the hard stuff disappear, which we wish that we could all do, but it's finding a way through it. He is also part of the amazing Podcast Connection Network. So he's all about authenticity, learning, and connection, just like the rest of the PCN crew. Ethan, let's jump right in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was the best introduction I've ever heard. And it might be the only one I've ever heard, but that doesn't change anything. It was great. It was awesome. I loved it. I loved it.
Perfect, perfect. I appreciate it. Okay, I know that your book is supposed to be this man's guide, which I appreciate and value because in this society, I think that emotions and men are like both taboo words stuck together.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your ability to be able to be so vulnerable and talking about these things, especially as a man. And especially, we give you shit all the time, but especially as such a young man.
Yeah.
So I'm almost twice Ethan's age.
I'm not gonna do the math. Don't worry, I won't do the math.
I'm always blown away and impressed by definitely his emotional resilience and emotional intelligence. Thank you for that. And thank you for being
Yeah.
a voice to so many men that struggle in this area, but not just men. I mean, I read the book and I was like, this book is definitely for me too. So
Right. Thank you for saying that. As I was writing it, and then as I was thinking about what I was going to call it, I'm going to say this. I don't know how it's going to come off, but I don't understand women at all on any level. I only grew up with brothers. So I am one of five brothers. I was the youngest
oh
for a
wow.
long time. Yeah. And my youngest brother's 13 now. So I was 11 when he was born. So I think men and women are very different. And there's a very different way that men process their emotions and can bolster themselves up and can kind of work towards their own self fulfillment. At first, it was a man's guide to developing emotional resilience, and then I got rid of the A because I was like, well, I'm just gonna say man's guide to developing emotional resilience. So it's like mankind.
Oh, I love that.
It certainly can apply to everybody. I have sisters-in-law now. I'll try to like talk to them and help them. In the back of my head, I'm like, you just kind of have to do the hard thing. And they're like, and that it just doesn't jive very well, which is fine. So that's mainly coming from my ignorance of trying to help women develop emotional resilience.
Mm.
I think it is applicable for everyone. I hope so. Anyways, it sounds like it was applicable for you, which, check that box. That's great.
Yes, definitely. I may have highlighted a lot of things in this book, so I appreciate it. There are definitely differences in the way that we operate, but I think that the similarity is we all struggle.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always like to say you're gonna stub your toe at some point. That's like the worst inconvenience. Maybe not the worst, you know? And so I think men and women are going to stub their toe just as much as everybody else, right? So the human condition, it doesn't discriminate or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing that I really love about the book, the way that you kind of walk us through emotional resilience and emotional intelligence, how that kind of came about for you,
Mhm.
and then how we can also incorporate those tools. I think one of my favorite parts, though, was the end of the book where you took all the tools that you said throughout the book and put them in an easy chart for my brain. And I was like,
Yeah.
I love this.
That is very heartwarming for me to know because after I had finished writing every section and I was moving towards the close of the book out, it's funny because I'll write whatever, you know, in the current books I'm writing in this book, and I'll just forget what I wrote about. It just happens. And so I forgot whether or not I made a clear connection between the title of the section and developing emotional resilience. And so that's why that came about. And I think it's helpful because I've done other interviews and I'll even open it and I'll read those sections because I'm like, oh yeah, this is this is what I wrote about. This is what I was trying to say. You know, I forget that I wrote this, I forget that I wrote that. And so that summary was helpful for me in a lot of ways because then it made it more digestible.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, repetitiveness, especially in this
Mm.
journey of learning new tools, hearing things maybe said in a different way, it reiterates it. And so it also had this redundancy of, oh, yeah, I just learned that. It's a reminder, oh, yeah, this is how I can apply it. That's what this means.
Yeah, it worked out, which I'm glad it did. It's funny because I have no formal education when it just period, no formal education. So for me to just have that idea and then have it work out, it's like the work is working.
I love when that happened. Many of our listeners have been where you were. Can you take us just back to those moments when you weren't sure if you were going to be here today? Those tough times when you felt really alone. I think it's so important that the listeners know that they're not alone. Like you're on the other side of it. They want to hear where you came from, that you understand where they are before you can help them get to the other side.
Right, right. Yeah, let me dive into that. And I would want to say, I think I am on the other side of a lot of issues, but the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's just more grass. I still am struggling, but not to the degree that I was just a couple years ago.
Hold on before you get started,
Yes.
because that is huge. And again, this is what I said in the beginning. This is one of the things that I absolutely loved about what you said in the book, because I think so often in this journey in healing, and we can hear people, come out on the other side is that, oh, it's all beautiful and rainbows. And that's not the fucking case.
No, it's not.
We still struggle, right? It's just now we have different tools and stuff. So I just really appreciate you taking the time to reiterate and are vulnerable about your journey. Who doesn't want to be past it? We all do, but
Oh, yeah. Sign me up.
right?
Sign me up.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're not. None of us are. And
Mm-mm.
anybody who says they are past things either isn't doing the work or they're ignoring it. Like that's just the
Exactly.
plain and simple of it is this is a life journey. We're never off this roller coaster y- unless you get off. Like this there is
Yeah.
there's no stopping it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think I'm selfish in the way that I'm vulnerable because if I'm not, then it hurts me more, right?
Mm.
If I'm not vulnerable about where I am now, where I've been, and my hopes to where I'll be, then it's just more dishonesty. And when I have dishonesty, it just breeds more stress and anxiety. Then I feel like I have to put up a front about this lie. You know, I am not like an emotional guru, I don't think. I think I'm just a guy who's learned some stuff. And I say that just to say, yeah, I'm still learning, you know. Just like you said, the roller coaster doesn't stop unless you want it to. I'll dive in now. That's a good transition. I was at a point where I wanted to hop off the roller coaster. I'm not somebody who has had intense abuse and intense trauma. I had a pretty great childhood. I have a good life now, but I just had this immense depression. Whether it was from traumatic brain injuries, from getting concussions or car accidents or anything like that, it didn't matter. It was the fact of the matter was it was there. I started to recognize the depression in my life when I must have been 20, maybe 21, when I just finally was honest and I was like, I am just depressed more often than not. So naturally, I started taking antidepressants, which they give you an edge, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you. So I was a missionary for my church, age 18 to age 20. And as a missionary, there's a lot of pressure to be as good as a missionary as you can. In that magnifying glass, I just started realizing there's all these things about myself that I have no control over, that I can't help. Just anxious, depressed, sometimes more often than not, just not into the whole missionary thing, not into the whole like trying to be happy thing. Quickly, I was like, well, I need to fix those things. So I tried to patch them up as best I can, do all these things, read the scriptures, like do all this stuff to fix it so it would go away. It didn't go away. So all that culminated to one day in 2021, I attempted suicide. And I got to that point just from having gone through so many depressive episodes of so many days of I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do this. And I had a what felt like a palpable, tangible pain that I couldn't figure out. And it was just there. It was constant. Now, there were times when it wasn't as intense as other times. There were times when it felt like it wasn't there at all, but I knew it was there. It was like a aquifer that I could tap into whenever I wanted, and sometimes it overfilled. I had started a business early of 2020. That business failed. I ended up selling it at a loss because I just lost the passion for it. In that same year, I tried to go do summer sales. I was supposed to be out there for, I think, 4 months, maybe 5 months. And just that constant anxiety and that constant pressure, which I felt like it was far more intense in that environment than it was on the mission. It just bubbled up. And it was around the same time that my business was kind of faltering. Summer sales and the dreams of, making all this money started to crumble. And it all just kind of collapsed. With already having had a lot of intense depressive episodes, that was just the climax of it all. I had no hope, no desire for hope. I didn't care about really anything. Utterly and ultimately black and dark. Went to bed in darkness and I woke up in darkness. When you get to that moment in that headspace, it didn't matter what anybody told me. It didn't matter how many people would say, "We love you. We don't want you to kill yourself. We don't want this to happen." None of that mattered because I had already decided that I didn't want to be here. The moment that I could have ended it all. No one texted me. No one called me. There wasn't like a lyric in a song I was listening to that like stood out. God didn't come sit next to me. There wasn't uh run of the mill miracle, right? I didn't pull the trigger and the gun not go off. I literally was just alone. It was just me. The only thing that happened was I got an overwhelming sense that this is the wrong choice. That was it. There was no direction for what is the right choice. There was no grand aha moment where it was like, oh, well, if I do this with my business, then I can save it. There was no, I need to go do this. I need to go to college for this amount of time so I can do this. Like there was no cutout plan. All I felt was this is the wrong choice. And I'm going to backtrack here. When I said, I don't say that I didn't have any calls from family or calls from friends. That's not to say anything bad about my family. You know what I mean?
Right.
They are my strength. They were my strength then. I just didn't reach out. There's a responsibility on everybody to reach out if you need help, right? And so it was in that moment that I was like, okay, I just got the overwhelming sense like this is the wrong choice. I didn't know why. I didn't care what the right choice was. And in that crucible, that intense weight, whether I knew it or not, 100% didn't know it. That's where emotional resilience and the idea of it, I think, started to blossom. Not even blossom. There was a seed there.
Do you think that that's because you listened to that gut feeling?
I think so. I think so. I think that gut feeling was the start of like, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if I need to go right or I need to go left. I don't know. But I know that's not the right answer. And holding on to that I think started to build a foundation, and now it's time to walk up the mountain, right? If that was rock bottom, the gut feeling was someone dropping a rope and they're like, you can't stay down there forever. And that's what I realized. And I hope this is making sense. I'm so much better at writing my thoughts, I think, than I am speaking my thoughts.
Let me hear if I'm getting it right.
Yeah.
Basically, you were in this spot where really nothing mattered, thing that was really that important to you, and so you just didn't want to be here anymore. So far, is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, that is a very common thing. I think a lot of people feel that on a daily basis.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I want to present my story in a way that's authentic, is that it's so common for people to not care about anything. It's so common for, I think, for my peers and anybody else to not care about simple hygiene. You know, that was my life. And I say that from a place of having been there and hopes I can help people recognize that I've felt what they have felt and I live what they are now living.
Yeah, that's huge. And I wrote that down because it's so big. I think that we don't talk about it enough, how common that is, how normal actually it is to have those thoughts because life can be really overwhelming.
Mhm.
And like you said, sometimes these things that seem so important really don't matter. Like,
Yeah.
I know for me and for many others, even just getting out of bed or taking a shower was like an act of Congress,
Mhm.
on some days. And that is normal and natural. And it is okay because so many people are just trying to fucking survive.
Yeah.
And I think that if we, as people around those people who maybe don't want to be here in those moments, if we can just validate that and take a step back and like, what's really important right now?
Exactly. Exactly. I think what you touched on coming to grips with reality, right? I mean, that's what it is, the way I see it. I mean, I looking down the barrel of a gun, there isn't anything there, right? On the other side of the bullet, it's done. And if you come to reality, and I think that's what that phrase was, this is the wrong choice. That brought me back to earth. I was like, okay, well, if this is the wrong choice, then that means there's a right choice. And if nothing else, I should hang around until I find that right choice, right? I think it's totally okay to come to grips with reality. And if somebody is just completely dejected and they don't want to live, it helps to verbalize that. Because for me, like the one of the most intense things was telling my mom, like, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. And to see the reaction on her face was a evidence to me that I matter. Because if somebody like my mom, who loves me more than anyone ever has and ever could, responds in such a way that is like, I could just see the fear and the pain in her eyes, that was a testament to me that I matter. And if I matter, there's no reason to stop myself from breathing.
Just a quick interruption.
Yo, this is Hunter from the Everything's Connected podcast. I'm so glad you tuned in. Did you know that this podcast, as well as my own, are part of a much larger community called the Podcast Connection Network? We have some pretty awesome shows hosted by some even more amazing souls, just waiting to be discovered. If you're curious, head on over to the link in the description below. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, now back to the show. So, what would it have looked like if somebody were to say, Ethan, dude, I see you just don't want to fucking be here anymore. And that makes so much sense. Nothing really matters. Like, I see your pain. I understand where you are. Like, that makes so much sense that you wouldn't want to be here. Like, I love you. You matter. I totally understand not wanting to be here. What would that have done?
I think in the long run it would have helped, but my knee-jerk reaction would have been to deny that. Because I think for me personally, I had to find within, okay, if that's the wrong choice, then I have to find the right choice for me. I have to do it for me. I think in the long run, it would have helped because after having grown past that, I would have realized that connection is worth more than gold. It's worth more than everything to have that connection. Yet for me, I had to start valuing my life just a little bit to get out of that dark hole. Once I was out of that dark hole, then I'm starting to see the light. I was so isolated at the time the day I attempted suicide. I was so isolated there. Didn't matter what anybody would have said. It just wouldn't have, because I had already made the choice. When I told my parents, that was a day or two after I had attempted suicide. That's very close to how the conversation went. But it wasn't anything that they said, it was the feeling that I got from looking at their reactions. My feelings on the inside were a huge proponent for realizing and for trying to give and place value on feeling, just in a broad term. And I hope that makes sense. It might not make sense at all.
It really sounds like that connection to yourself, even when you were talking about that day and that gut feeling and just that reassurance from yourself, that self validation,
Mhm.
like this isn't the right choice.
Mhm.
It's so important to point that out, that you keep talking about how you felt.
Yeah.
When you heard that, it was how you felt that it was the wrong choice. Not that you heard it's the wrong choice, that it was you felt it was the wrong choice.
Right.
And then also when you were talking to your parents, you said it was what you felt.
Right.
That's so important, especially for people on this journey or just beginning or in this place of not wanting to be here, that we've become so disconnected from that and really taking that time to stop. How do I feel? What's happening to my body? Where do I feel this? What do I feel? Correct me if I'm wrong, that really was the foundation of the starting point for you.
I think you're right. I think it was. The first point in the book is called Emotions Are Cool, because what you touched on is, I think, the balance of listening to your feelings and not listening to your feelings. The fact that we have feelings is proof that we're alive.
You made a podcast episode about this, correct?
Yes. I don't remember when I published it, but yes.
Go check that out, you guys.
It's called Can We Talk About Our Feelings? Because see, at that time, I was so sure and I was convinced that what I was feeling, which wasn't anything but pain, was the feeling to follow. And in that moment, there's an interruption of a separate feeling, of a gut feeling of, no, this is wrong. So I had to decide, well, which one am I going to follow? And that process of determining, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to follow here? I don't feel anything. I don't feel any pain, but I feel like this is the wrong choice. Following the fleeting feeling of depression and anxiety and all things negative would have got me nowhere. And I knew that. I was sure of that. But following the gut feeling of this is wrong, and the reverse of that would have been there is a right choice. I didn't know where that was going to take me, but it felt a little bit better than pain, only because it was not pain. Because I had felt pain for so long that to have feel something else was enough to have me trust it. And so as we go about our days, as we, freaking are on this roller coaster of life, every single day we're going to have these feelings about other people, about ourselves. It can come down to dissecting, analyzing, and making a choice about, are we going to follow our feelings or are we not going to follow our feelings? I think emotions, literally, I think they're the coolest things ever. Because because I think they can be so telling. They can be so informative, right? I think there is even value in the pain that I felt. Don't know if I've dissected that enough yet to know what that value is, but in all feelings, there's value there. Feelings, emotions, I think are pretty synonymous. To have emotion and to have feeling, I think gives life its color. The question is, and the difficulty is, you can follow all your emotions and do whatever you want, whatever you feel like doing. There's a phrase, a biblical phrase called the natural man. There's the natural man and the spiritual man. Have you heard about the two wolves? It's a saying that there are two wolves that live inside of us. So essentially, there's one wolf that embodies all positive and all potential, good things, happiness, feeling content, feeling personal growth and improvement. That's one wolf. The other wolf is the direct opposite. It embodies everything negative, anger, lust, just a ravenous appetite for anything. The one that lives is the one you feed. And so you can decide, I'm just going to feed my negative wolf today and I'm going to indulge in all my vices. That's going to feel pretty good, but it's not going to really get you anywhere if you're honest with yourself. Or you can feed the positive wolf and you can do all the things that you really don't want to do, like going to the gym or exercising or cold plunging, or I don't know, it could be different for everybody. Like maybe they're in school and don't want to study, but they know they have to study. The one you feed is the one who lives, and you have to feed one or the other. The fact of the matter is, you have to decide which wolf is trying to get your attention. Like today, I should probably go to the gym, but I don't want to, right? Though I know that doing that uncomfortable gym workout is going to help me not only physically, like, but emotionally and mentally. It's going to make me feel more successful and feel more confident. But it is going to be a lot harder to accomplish than just sitting on my ass and not doing anything. And that dichotomy and that tug of war of feeling is universal and it's not going away. It comes down to what we're going to choose, who we're going to feed, and how we're going to do it.
So I think this kind of all goes back to listening to and being connected to self
Hmm.
and which one you're going to listen to, right? Being aware that they're both there
Yes.
and that it is a choice. We're not going to want to, like you said.
Never.
There's so many motivational speakers and motivation is fleeting.
Oh, yeah.
It's not there all of the time. Really, it just comes down to this choice of what we're going to choose to do. Like you said, okay to choose sometimes those indulgences. For me, it's going to be these energy drinks. I'm like, okay, I am going to have one today. I know it's not the best for me, but
Yeah.
I'm going to have one today.
Yes.
I'm not going to have it every day, but
Yes. And I'm right there with you. I just want to say, like, you're not alone. I was drinking, I was drinking one Red Bull a day for months, and then I started getting chest pain, and I was like, okay, hold on. Maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't do that. But sometimes,
right, we have a choice,
yes,
right?
yes.
We can see how we feel. And this kind of just came to me is when you were in that moment, you were by yourself and there was no other distractions.
Hmm.
And I think that that's pivotal. And just keeping that in the forefront of our mind is that in this society, we are overstimulated. We are overthrown with just shit and stuff and everything that not very often are we alone with how we feel.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
even being able to take time to see how the fuck we feel. Sometimes we don't want to. It's uncomfortable. And be honest with ourselves like, you know what? Today I'm angry. And that feels really uncomfortable. While we have these two sides of us, I think that both sides play a purpose and they're important. Both need to be validated, right? So for me, when I'm in that anger, oftentimes people can look at that anger and be like, oh, that's bad. I need to get rid of that.
Mhm.
That's what I do because it's uncomfortable, right? But underneath anger, that's just my protective. It's really just sadness. But I have to be still and I have to sit in that ick and be like, okay, what is really happening? Part of learning to be connected to ourselves and understanding is being curious. Like what the fuck am I feeling right now? Am I pissed off? Am I sad? Am I hungry? Like sometimes it can be that, right? Like so I think that it's so important to validate those feelings, acknowledge, okay, I'm pissed off right now. This makes sense because I was hurt and I was angry. Then, when we say it out loud, when it is validated, it like takes this power away from it instead of keeping it little gremlin thing locked away that builds, right?
Mhm.
Takes this power away when we can be honest. We're not holding it in our body anymore and we can release it and validate it. And really that's what so many people are looking for is validation from one another, but also we need to learn how to validate ourselves. I love that you didn't use the word hope. That word is thrown around so much. You were like, this is just how I was feeling. I didn't want to be here, but also this feeling came up. This didn't feel right. So many people also are looking for that, like you said, that phone call or that hope or that song to come on. It's in those moments where we have that choice. And so much of it comes back, just like you said, it's a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we going to do with that?
Yeah, I love that. That resonates deep. Unfortunately, more often than not, we're not going to get that phone call. And again, that's not to be negative or to say anything bad about anybody else. No way. Because right now, I have friends that I love and I could call them, but I have no idea what they're doing right now. Right. So it's like everybody is really good at not being a friend sometimes.
And that's a whole other episode, like expectations on friendships. We could talk about that for
Yeah,
hours.
we could. But yes, if we can sit with how we're feeling and come to terms with it, then we can start moving forward. Otherwise, we look for other things to numb the pain of how we're feeling. I have a friend, one of the things he said was, in today's world, not feeling anything is awesome. And he's so right. Because I think everybody would rather feel nothing than feel pain all the time. You can't numb out numbing out. You can't numb a numb feeling, right? And so you'll get to a point with, for me, it's energy drinks right now. For a lot of people, it's a lot. I think that's where addiction comes from, is they're looking for a way to not feel the pain that they feel. It will get to a point where that's not going to work. I was looking for anything that I could do to not feel as depressed as I was feeling. And I got to a point where all the vices that I turned to stopped working. And so I feel like I had nothing, no opportunity left. When you get to that moment, just like you said, you have to choose. You know, you have a choice to make. But you're right. When you validate it and come to terms with it, then you can move forward. Then you can say, okay, I feel like shit right now. What am I going to do about it? And I've found that sometimes it doesn't matter why. Like I have woken up so many days just absolutely rageful, just like I feel like Goku, and I just want to just destroy everything that I can. Like I could just freaking destroy the world, this palpable rage, and I don't know where it's from. I'll eat a good meal and I'll feel a little bit better, maybe, and then I'll just finally have a Red Bull. If I spend time trying to find why and how come, in a lot of these instances, I'm not going to have an answer. In those moments, what I like to do is just trust the fact that it'll go away. And it always does. Even the depression, even though I have depression and I feel depressed as often as I want, depending on how often I give it power, there's always another smile that's going to come around. There always is, right? So even if you wake up absolutely pissed, or if you wake up just super anxious and worried, or you wake up just super depressed, that sucks. You still have things that you have to do. You still have people that are going to rely on you. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't make it easier to know that, you know, you have someone who's relying on you, or you're going to have a happier day. It doesn't make it easier. But what it does is you kind of give yourself motivation, which is a word I think that I like to use lightly as well, because I think motivation is a sham. Knowing that it won't last forever is enough to do the next right thing.
The next right thing. I love that.
So the job I have right now, not a huge fan, but there's specific reasons why I'm going there and keep doing it. One of them is because I gotta pay the damn bills. But I'll just be super mad and I can just feel it like coursing through my hands. Like I could just I just feel it, but I just have to let it slide over, and it will. And I have a job that I have to get done. I have friends that I want to help in any way I can. And if they were to call me and I'm mad, I would just, for them, I would say, okay, I'm gonna help you in any way I can. So every time, validate your feeling. It's important. You're feeling it for some reason. Sometimes you might know exactly why you're feeling it. I think that happens. Other times, and for me, in my case, most times, no idea. Not that it doesn't matter, but most of the time I have things I need to get done.
That's huge because you are speaking to a recovering perfectionist
Mhm.
over here. We're learning so much about why. And I'm a key searcher because I played Zelda growing up, right?
Yeah.
I want to find all the keys. I want to know all the reasons why. Why is blue blue? Like, I want to know. This is a huge thing that you're saying is we can get tripped up right here. Well, I can get tripped up
Oh, yeah.
a really lot and stay there and spiral in that why because we feel like we have to dissect it because we're doing that a lot in this journey, like
Mhm.
questioning, getting curious. Again, I think that that comes back to really being connected to yourself, that still small voice that says, hey, you don't need to know this, you don't
Yeah.
need to find the key in this.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so huge. I mean, and then also you have a choice, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, well, that's nice. I hear you, but I need to find that key. And then, 2 days later, my vertigo's spinning and I I have to recover. And my body is like, well, my higher self's like, I tried to tell you. I think that that's huge,
Yes.
especially for the people who are on this journey and are hungry to know that sometimes, again, it's just so important to be connected and really listen and feel. Is this something that you have to question and dissect, or is this something that you can let go and kind of trust the process? So I
Right.
think that that's huge.
If you're depressed and if you're angry and you ask yourself, why am I depressed and why am I angry? You're just going to list reasons to continue being depressed and continue to be angry, right? And I've found that knowing why I'm depressed does not make me less depressed. If anything, it helps me feed into more depression. And so
Mm.
it's not saying that you shouldn't know why you're depressed or you shouldn't know why you're angry or you shouldn't know why you're upset or frustrated or tired or whatever. All it's saying is the why really doesn't justify how you feel. You could be mad because somebody rear-ended you, and that's like, yeah, you're mad about that. But your car is broken, so you still have to fix it, whether or not you're mad. For me, that's the area that I've tried to talk about and move out of. Yeah, you're depressed. Why are you depressed? Because of this. You're still depressed. For me personally, right? I can only speak for myself personally. I would much rather spend energy focusing on how am I going to still function throughout my day and do things that I know will be beneficial for me. How am I going to do that despite how I feel? And we could even turn this on the other side. It's just in reverse, basically, right? You feel happy, you feel great. You can list those reasons why you feel great, and that's going to help you feel better. You feel happy. Why are you happy? Because of this. Well, that's gratitude. Now you can feel better. It just does not work for negative feelings, I've found.
Well, like you said, it feeds
Yeah.
whatever you feed it, it grows.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so hard. I mean, I'm not perfect. Like, I have so many days where I'm like, negative self-talk will pick up, and I'm like, I wrote a book about this shit. And I'm like, yeah, I did. But I still feel bad. Like writing a book and publishing the book doesn't solve any of the problems.
I love what you're saying because we can get stuck there.
Hmm.
To be a huge debate on
Hmm.
this is because, again, we need to validate those feelings because they are there for a reason.
Yeah.
I have timers everywhere. For me, I'm like, okay, it needs to be acknowledged. I'm going to allow myself 5 minutes to slam my ball on the ground and be pissed that this happened.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to move on my day. I think that both are so
Yeah.
important that yes, they need to be validated. But if we stay there, like you're saying, if we continue to feed that, we're going to stay there.
Yeah, exactly. And there may be times when you're like, oh, I'm angry right now because I haven't eaten in 12 hours. Okay, so eat some damn food. Like, then you'll feel better, right?
So this is going back to kind of circling
Uh-huh.
back at how you started. And you talk a lot about this in the book, being honest with
Mhm.
yourself. You kind of started with that. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but in the beginning of the book, you were trying so hard to not feel these
Yeah.
things that I mean, it literally fucked you up. You fainted.
Yeah.
And so, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're honest with ourselves, because when we ignore it, that's when, okay, let me take a deep breath. This is where the validation comes in and then choosing to move forward, right?
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge it because when we try to make it go away or we ignore it or we shove it deep down, that is also not helping. You're creating a bigger shitstorm,
Mhm.
a bigger thing for you to deal with later. Being honest with ourselves. Yeah, I'm angry. This happened. I'm pissed. Am I really pissed? No, I'm really sad.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sad. Okay, I'm going to be sad for a minute and then I'm going to move on. But when we're not and we shove that anger down, that anger turns into resentment and then it festers and
Yeah.
continues. So I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves. That's really where it starts is when we can
Absolutely.
be honest with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's tough.
Oh, yeah, dude. I would much rather not tell myself that I drink way too much Red Bull because I want to drink Red Bull. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to talk about the energy
But I
drink
forgot about that rule. No energy drink talk. Yeah.
only because it makes me feel bad. No.
Well, well, we're talking about being honest with yourself, Amber. So no.
I know, I know.
Um,
That's why I said it out loud on
there
the
we go. There we
podcast.
go. No, you can't take it back unless you edit it out. Whatever. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. What I also try to do when I have conversations like these, or even conversations with homies or whatever, like, not recorded and it's just a vulnerable thing. I think it's super easy to talk about all these principles and all these kind of nebulous ideas. And it's a little bit difficult to have, like, this is what you can do today. And what I've found that helps me to be honest with myself is talking to myself out loud. That sounds like a line out of American Psycho. Like, his morning routine is talking to himself out loud. But it's so helpful. Like, at the end of the night or in the morning, I'm like, dude, I feel good. Things are going great. And it's like, that's awesome. I'm glad things are going great. Stay focused. Or it's like, I don't feel very good. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do this. And I just have this dialogue with myself. I'm going to steal this from Mr. Jordan Peterson, Mr. JP. I'm treating myself like somebody I'm trying to help. And I'm going to talk to myself like that. That's how you're honest with yourself. And now, because I've been kind of doing this, I don't want to say so long, I don't know. But now I'm much more capable about being vulnerable about who I am and how I'm feeling in front of people. And it's not a difficult thing. It's not a requirement to be honest with yourself in front of other people. If you're not there yet, just talk to yourself in the morning. Just talk to yourself in the mirror, right? Like, I just don't feel very good or whatever. Like, that's going to help you. And then you can talk to other people about it. When you talk to other people about it, you take power from it. I think one of the most empowering feelings is knowing that you have the power of choice, that you can
Mm.
choose. If you can't choose anything, you're a prisoner, right? You're a prisoner if you can't choose anything. I have to drink a Red Bull. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to get into that. Um, um, the power of choice is literally, I think, the most empowering thing. When you're honest with yourself about how you feel, I can choose. I can choose. I'm going to be honest right now. Sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes, like you said, I would just rather be pissed off for a couple days. Hopefully, it doesn't last that long. It never has. But at least an entire day, I'm just going to be pissed off. You'll get past that, but you validated it and you chose to sit in it for a little bit. That's your choice. But you do have a choice to not sit into it. Even if you do sit into it, there's still things you have to do. Life goes on, so it goes. But yeah, man, just talking to yourself. Out of all the people I talk to myself the most, 100%, because I'm the only one that's with me all the time. It's annoying sometimes, dude. Like, sometimes it is just like, oh my gosh, dude, shut up. I'm a writer, just naturally, right? I wrote a damn book, but like, I can't stop analyzing everything. And I'm just like, dude, just chill, 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 chill. But I think being honest with myself and talking through it, that helps me to connect to myself and just try to be a friend to myself. I don't think this will ever happen again. In the moment where I was those years ago when I attempted suicide, at that time, I wasn't ready and I wasn't able to be honest with myself and talk to myself about how I'm feeling. But now I'm not going to get to that point because I've just developed this, I'm going to say resilience, emotional resilience, I know, but I've developed this resilience to, I can talk to myself and I can talk myself through anything that's going on as a means to stay focused on being productive in whatever area of life seems the most pertinent at the moment. I guess that would be a practical thing. Just start talking to yourself. It's weird. It's so weird at first. I sometimes pretend like I'm on a talk show and I'll ask myself questions, but because I ask myself questions, I can actually start to think through things. Maybe that's a tip for writing more so than anything else.
I was going to say, I do that in writing
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. I have conversations with myself. I mean, it feels weird, but this is actually something that I also learned when I was going to school.
Mhm.
It is a huge tip and a huge tool to talk to yourself. I like running.
Mhm.
It helps clear my mind and all of that. I will talk to myself as I run, and people probably think I'm crazy. I'm like, "Come on, you got this. Let's go. Let's
Mhm.
go." Right? And I'll give myself a high five. So many things are happening here. We're learning to be there for ourselves.
Yeah.
So many of us have abandoned ourselves so many times. We've been disconnected from ourselves, especially people who have gone through extreme
Yeah.
trauma. You had to disconnect from yourself. So many people's choice was taken away from them.
Yeah. Mhm.
To come back and to choose yourself, to validate yourself. Hunter, this is on recording so you can hear this. Because we always fight back and forth,
Yeah.
like self and others,
Yes.
self and others.
Yeah.
really choosing yourself and being able to validate yourself. It is so important. Like you said, the power of choice. We see you. You didn't have a choice before.
Mhm.
Now you have a choice. What happens when you choose yourself, when you choose to move forward, each time you are building trust within yourself.
Yeah.
And when you are talking to yourself and you are speaking positive things, or I don't even want to use the word positive, but good things
Mhm.
into yourself, after so many years and probably so many people of speaking negative, you get to choose to treat yourself differently, to speak to yourself kindly. So I love that you brought up that choice and just being there for yourself. We all want to be chosen.
Mhm.
We all want to be seen and heard and validated. We can also do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not that we don't need it from other people, because it is
Mhm.
important and
Yes.
it is essential
Yes.
to create safe connections. But it is so important to be able to choose ourselves because you're really validating
Mhm.
yourself. You're being honest and validating those feelings where some people may never get that from somebody else.
Right. It's unfortunately to play the mediator. I would say that in doing that, that will help you have deeper connections with other people.
Yes, thank
You're,
you.
you're welcome.
And it really will, because also when you become connected to yourself, you'll know how you feel
Mhm.
and you can also communicate that. Like, hey, I'm having a tough day. When you can start being honest with yourself, it is easier to be honest with other people.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things I don't think I did well in the book was highlighting the necessity of other people. I am under the belief that I think it does start with ourselves.
Fine.
um
I'm just kidding.
oh, here we go. No, it starts with ourselves, but it's not done in a way to lift yourself above anybody else, right? One of the other books I'm writing is about emotional resilience and how it relates to relationships. It's complicated. I can't speak too much of it now because I don't even know.
I'm excited for that one because that's right up my alley.
Yeah, right, right. We as humans, as people, I think grow and find fulfillment in life when we have safe connection. We can offer that to ourselves to some extent. Being alone can easily translate to loneliness. It doesn't have to, but it can. And loneliness can just compound to all these other, it can go sadness, anger, resentment, right? I mean, I can't really add much more to what you said. When you feel connected to yourself, there's nothing but positive things that can come from that. I really think that. Now, a note on talking to yourself, I found this for myself, and I think a lot of people would relate to this. I had terrible self-talk. I was like, no one has been, no one can ever be as negative to me as I ever have been to myself. When I was in high school, I was a perfectionist. I think I still am in varying degrees. I was on a soccer team and we lost every single game, but I loved it because I got to play every game. The coaches would just yell at me and everybody, but in the back of my head, I'm like, you have nothing on what I could say to myself, on what I have said to myself. As you start talking to yourself, then you have this awareness that comes about, this awareness of, oh man, I really kind of call myself an idiot. I call myself stupid all the time. Why do I do that? I don't want to do that anymore because it doesn't benefit you. Then you can start taking control over the conversation. The thing is, it's the only conversation I think that you can have the most control over, right? Having a conversation is basically improv. And so conversations in and of themselves can be difficult, but a conversation with yourself is one that you answer the questions that you ask yourself. If your autopilot is just to berate yourself, can be the reason why a lot of, I don't know, issues. So as you start talking to yourself, then you start becoming self-aware. Now you're self-aware, which is great, but sometimes it sucks.
Yeah, it goes back to that being honest with yourself. It's pretty much being
Yeah.
self-aware. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
okay,
yeah,
this is where
it
we are.
honestly, I've been thinking a lot about self-awareness lately, and it's just the worst. Like it's awesome and it's great, but sometimes it's like, dude, I wish I could just like not.
Not have energy drinks all the time. No.
Yeah, but that's such a good example. Right before getting on to this podcast, I had 6 Oreos. that was 6 too many that I needed. And I'm aware of that. And as I was eating them, I was like, I don't need these, but I'm gonna eat them. I'm gonna eat them. And so you have this just like, oh gosh, like I fall so short of all these things. And that's where it can be difficult. But the benefit is I can internalize happiness and positive moments with my family, with my friends. Like I can internalize them so much better now because I'm so much more aware of them. Right? I do have higher highs and I do have lower lows, but not as often as I did when I just wasn't as self-aware. And that's inevitable. But they say ignorance is bliss until you die. Like that's what I would say. Like ignorance is bliss until you realize it's not. As we become honest with ourselves, we'll be far more self-aware. Once you get on this journey of emotional resilience, you're just going to realize that you're not resilient, right? When people focus on being so happy all the time, they're just realizing that they're not happy all the time. Doesn't help, but it can help if you realize that, oh, I can now actually internalize being content and I can move forward because I'm self-aware. As soon as you crack open that Red Bull, you're gonna realize, oh geez, like I know, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. But that's the beauty of it is it's just a cyclical life. I'm a religious guy, so to me, it's just a beautiful place that we were put in to learn and to grow, you know?
I love that. There's no right or wrong choices.
Hmm.
They're just roads that we take. If we take a road that we don't like, we just switch the roads. We just go down a different road. There's so much weight put on right or wrong, or, this is the perfect choice and this is the right choice. And that can add so much pressure and guilt and shame. It's a lot to
Yeah.
carry. And if we can look at the choice as they're just choices, if we choose something and it doesn't end up what we want, it doesn't feel good, it's not pretty, we can just take a different road.
Yeah, exactly. The only wrong thing we can do is hurt other people, right? I think we can boil that down, and I think everyone can agree, like, yeah, hurting other people's objectively wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You're totally right. It takes pressure off of ourselves. Oh, it's pretty easy to not hurt anybody else. So yeah, okay, you
Some
know,
days,
well, yes, that is a very good
if I'm
asterisk.
being honest.
No, that's a very good asterisk to put. Some days it is maybe a little bit more challenging. Um, yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, like, oh man, I don't even remember what I was saying. I probably wasn't saying anything
Sorry, my
important.
bad.
No, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. It's a beautiful life.
We have talked about so much in this short amount of time, but
Yeah.
I think what we wanted to do in this episode was just remind people that we see you. You're not alone, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And it's very normal and natural. The one thing that if you're there is really that awareness of, hey, this is where I am. That's okay in this moment. Validate that. And okay, now I have a choice.
Mhm.
Now I get to choose. Maybe I was never chosen. Now I get to choose myself. And there's so
Right.
many other things that follow up with that. But I really think that leaving people with that message, that being connected to ourselves, choosing ourselves, and being self aware, being honest are really the first steps that are going to move you through. It doesn't go away, but it moves you more towards a direction that you want to be in.
It's a good way to put it. The challenge is not going away. We're
Right.
kind of all Sisyphus all the time. We're just pushing a roll of rock up a hill and it never gets to the top. But we're gonna get pretty dang strong because it's a heavy boulder.
What's a Sisyphus?
You don't know the story of Sisyphus?
Uh, I mean, is it the pushing the boulder up the
Yeah.
hill? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
This
okay.
is crazy. I thought
I
every
just want to make sure.
no, you're
I mean, I've heard it, but
it's
I was like, at
yeah.
first, I was like, what's a Sisyphus?
Yeah, it
You
sounds
speak
like
all these, I mean, you're a writer, so
I
you know all
know.
these different words.
I know,
So
but
I have to just stay on
Sisyphus
my toes.
Sisyphus sounds like an STD, so it's kind of weird.
I was already having the question, and then you said the boulder, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, but it was like already there.
It's so silly because yeah, I write all this stuff in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, everybody knows who this guy is and who this story. It's common knowledge, dude. But then I realized, no, no, not everybody knows that. Yeah,
So we will link the story to Sisyphus and the boulder.
If you
in the
want, I mean,
description.
I don't
Well,
look.
now people are going to be like, what the fuck is this story?
Yeah, it's not about an STD. I mean, I could say in one sentence, he was cursed to roll
Okay,
a
go ahead.
boulder up a hill, and as soon as he gets to the top, the boulder rolls back down, and he does that for eternity. Period.
That gives me chest pains because it does. It feels
That
like
might
life
be the energy
sometimes.
drinks, Amber.
I haven't had one yet today, but it could be the coffee because I'm trying to
Well,
substitute for the energy
that's
drink.
basically that's just Earth's energy drink, is what I've heard. I don't think that's true, but I've heard that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about your issues today. No, I'm just kidding.
I got a lot, so hopefully you're buckled up.
No, we appreciate you, Ethan. This has been amazing. Please tell us where they can find you, where they can find your book. It will all be in the description, but let's hear it from you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, apparently, I am a kind of a hard guy to get a hold of. So
I only tried to find him for like 2 months.
yeah, I didn't think I was. I am on Instagram. Instagram handle is the Nonchalant Perfectionist. Then the book is on Amazon. It's called Nonchalant Perfectionism: A Man's Guide to Developing Emotional Resilience. That's the one.
Check out Ethan, check out all of his stuff. We are looking forward to your next books. So we will definitely have to have you back on to talk about those because it sounds like it's right up my alley about we're created for connection and how
Yes,
emotional resilience can help us have better connections. So definitely we'll be back talking about that one.
absolutely. But it's gonna take a while, I'll be honest, because I have two books. I'm writing one right now that is not about mental health or emotional resilience. It's kind of like another thing I want to do. I'm gonna do that one first, and then I'm gonna do that one. So it might be a little while. I promise not to be hard to get a hold of, so that you can read it.
Well, now that we're in the same podcast
Yeah.
connection
Oh yeah, yeah,
network,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't run too far.
Yes.
So
Now you have my phone number, but I don't answer phone
yes.
calls that often or text. So maybe I am hard to get a hold of.
If we're being honest with ourselves.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard to get a hold of. Yeah, that's true. You got me. Game, set, match. Checkmate.
And with that, thank you guys, and we will see you next time.
And I haven't even read the book yet. No, I have. I read it. And I forgot everything that you said just now, but I'm trying to remember what you said. Yes, it's so funny, man. Podcasts are so fun, but sometimes I'll just forget everything that I know about.
I have to write a million notes.
That's so smart. I should do that. I'm playing with a pen right now. And I could write things down, but I just need something to visual with. You know, that's actually me on the picture. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
can totally see the resemblance.
Yeah, that was just a few years ago, back in high school.
Grade school.
Another question. Do you know who that is on the cover?
Well, yeah, that's the dude that goes like this.
Right. Yep. You got it.
Am I wrong?
Yes, that's Hercules.
Okay. We're gonna edit that part out. So then why did you choose Hercules?
I think I chose him not at all about his story, but just because he looks good in that picture.
I love the honesty. Like, I love it. I love it. I was waiting for this huge, like, profound story connection.
I can pontificate right now if you want me to about why I chose that. I always forget the year. Oh geez. I think it's good that
Let's
I
see,
forget
what page is it on?
I
No,
don't know. I don't know if they it's funny. When I wrote the book, I didn't even have page numbers, so I don't even know. I didn't even have chapter numbers, so I don't know what chapters it is. Okay. I always forget the year. Oh geez. I think it's good that
Let's
I
see,
forget
what
the
page is it on?
I
No,
don't know. I don't know if they it's funny. When I wrote the book, I didn't even have page numbers, so I don't even know. I didn't even have chapter numbers, so I don't know what chapters it is.
The views and opinions expressed by myself and any guest on this podcast are solely ours and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of any organizations we are affiliated with. The content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. As always, consult with a trusted healthcare professional regarding any medical conditions or concerns.